Well, happy homecoming, Illinois fans. They responded. They came back. They bounced back from what was an ugly loss last week. And Illinois won this one 34-32 in a thrilling field, field goal winning drive. So, welcome back to the Illini Audible podcast. My name is Said Bravo. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the pod. I really appreciate it. That's right. They did it. They responded. All the messaging that they had told us about in that building, in the walls of the Smith Center, it worked. Whatever messaging it was, and what they told us was that they had to wear it. They watched Brett Bielema talked about how he watched the film from Indiana last Saturday, that very evening, and how that stink was there. But what matters now is what they've done to redeem that. And that happened here today at Memorial Stadium as they took their victory against USC. And we saw a lot. I think we learned a lot definitely today than we have throughout the first 3 weeks certainly of the season. Obviously, these past 2 weeks that have been kind of a whirlwind in the world of Illinois football. But there was a lot of things that were encouraging. You beat a USC team, obviously Lincoln Riley, head coach, always a prolific offense, a great quarterback in Jaden Maiva, and just you have some weapons. They had some weapons, wide receiver weapons that are probably going to be top NFL draft picks in first round, second round, wherever that lands them. And we saw a game that was mixed results, but overall you feel great because they won and they put up a lot of good results. And the part that to me stands out is the efficiency on offense, how prolific they look themselves against this USC team. But not only that, it is the turnovers, that the turnover margin that they won and how that contributed to winning this game. There's a lot in this game that you feel great about, but there's also a lot in this game that continue to raise some concerns. But credit to Illinois for winning that game because this is a good USC team. I didn't have them winning this game throughout most of this week. I just didn't feel good about what they showed us against Indiana, and to have that kind of performance, you have to prove that it's not going to carry over. And boy, it did not carry over. And you could tell just by the offensive, the way that they played offensively, the way that it clicked, and then defensively, the turnovers, albeit they did allow plenty of points, albeit, again, this is a Lincoln Riley offense with a prolific quarterback and a lot of weapons. But overall, you won. You make a West Coast rival, a West Coast team come into your building on your homecoming, and you protect your own turf. You feel great about that. And now Illinois moves to 4-1, and you feel good about Illinois going into week 5. That'll be against Purdue. But overall, there was a lot of things inside of this game. Luke Altmaier, 20 for 26, completed 20 of 26 passes for 328 yards, 2 touchdowns. So back to normal for Luke Altmaier. And obviously, there were a couple other things that we'll talk about as well. In terms of the receivers played plenty well as well. Hank Beatty, 6 receptions, 81 yards, and he threw for a touchdown, which that was one of the better moments in this game. Yeah, I feel, and I think we can start with this. I think in the first quarter, you really felt Barry Lunny trying to right that ship, trying to build confidence in the offensive system and the way that they were playing. You saw the usage of tight ends on that first drive. That first, whether or not it was scripted, whatever play calling methods they used, it worked and it looked really good. Barry Lunny was calling great plays, even in the moments when you thought when those plays did not result in plus yardage. You felt like Barry Lunny was having a really good day calling his plays. And credit to him, that's credit to the players as well. You saw that the offensive line was also able to, for the most part, hold their own, and they responded appropriately. I think you saw Josh Kreutz get chippy as well, and I mean he's always chippy, but you saw him today it was just a little different, and there was obviously a lot of things that went into this game. I think that in on the offensive side of the ball, you feel like you saw a lot in the passing game, and that is obviously the strength of this team. This team plays really well at Memorial Stadium. That is one thing that I'd have to check when was the last time they lost at Memorial Stadium, but that is one thing that I've been noticing about this team, and it feels like the over the past 2 seasons, a lot of these prolific, kind of crazy, euphoric wins have come on the heels of previous performances that might have left something to be desired, but they've responded well throughout these past couple years, and so you wonder how that's gonna if that's gonna continue this week, but to go back to the offensive coordinator point with Barry Lonnie Jr., you felt really good about the things that he did today, and the way that the messaging was carried, and the way that he responded himself. A lot of those calls were appropriate for the time, even the ones that didn't result in plus yardage. Like I said, continue to give some results, and it felt like it really they could really control the room, the game, the flow of the game, and I think that's always what they really aim for. Obviously, Colin Dixon was another one of those guys who today got a lot of yardage, a lot of receptions. Obviously, he had that big chunk play in the fourth quarter, the 61 yarder where he almost took it for a touchdown, and that's one of the key plays as well. Where you thought that Illinois was gonna score, and then things kind of unravel. So let's talk about that for a little bit. I think that it was, you know, you still notice that Illinois does not take advantage of the opportunity. Did not in this particular game. Did not take advantage of the opportunities that were granted by USC. They had three turnovers in this game that USC gave up, and the Illinois defense recovered three turnovers. One was the pass breakup by Juice Clark. I believe it was the second quarter, maybe third. I think it was the third quarter actually. You had that initial fumble forced by Leon Lowry, recovered by Juice Clark. So two big plays right there for him. And then you also had a turnover. I believe it was a turnover or a forced fumble. I have to look here just to remind myself. There wasn't. There was the interception by Dylan Rosiak, of course. And so the thing that you want to see, and Illinois did it on that first drive in that first quarter when they did recover that fumble, because that was USC's first drive going into this game, and to have that forced fumble gave Illinois that ability to go up 7-0 and have USC kind of play from behind the sticks throughout the entire game. That was a key moment, but there were opportunities that Illinois left on the table, including that there was that interception by Dylan Rosiak ultimately resulted in, or that pass break by Juice Clark ultimately resulted in a 3-and-out. And with Dylan Rosiak's interception, they weren't able to put the exclamation point on that and put points on the board. And if you do that at any point from those turnovers, you're really the other opponent is gasping for air at that point. And it felt like that was really, if we're being really nitpicky, which I think Illinois fans can be, because this was a game at Memorial Stadium and this was homecoming, and yes, albeit this team was playing a really, really good USC team, you certainly believe that there are ways that this team can be better, and those are what you refer to. There were things that in this team that they had to take advantage of, and they simply did not. And that is when you get to those moments, like that key moment in that second quarter when Illinois is driving down the field and with all the momentum behind their back. And obviously, we could talk about whether or not that Caden Fagan fumble was a fumble or not near the goal line. I personally, I did not think it was a fumble. It looked like Caden Fagan was down. But Caden Fagan said after the game, you never want to leave any of those decisions up to the refs. And it was up to the refs. It was whatever, in contention or whatever. And it resulted in a turnover after they spent how many minutes? It was like about 4 or 5 minutes driving down the field, grabbing the throats of USC. You give up a fumble. I called it a soul crushing fumble because now USC goes, you had the opportunity to go up 2 scores into the second half against this USC team to kind of be in control of this game. And then you go into that third quarter, maybe you score another, maybe you score a field goal, and you feel comfortable in this game. Instead, USC drives down your field and they score a field goal uh, before they're able to close the first half. Credit to defense. They didn't give up a touchdown, but USC was able to easily drive down the field to put up some points on the board, and it kept them in the game. The same thing happened. These are the red flags, guys. The same thing happened in that fourth quarter when, as I referred to, that Colin Dixon reception where he catches the ball and then he runs for 60 something yards, 61 yards, and he nears a touchdown, but he gets tripped up. That play, that play changes everything in this game. The fact that he got stopped from scoring that touchdown. At that point, it looked like it was gonna be a game. It was gonna be a game where, excuse me, Illinois was gonna close out the game. I said it even in the press box, and I got yelled at because I jinxed it. I quite literally I said that's game. That point right there, I made the mistake that I assumed Illinois would score on those ensuing plays, and little did I know that this team would crap the bad literally on the very next play. Khalil Valentine fumbles the ball near the end zone again. And it's not only one soul crushing drive, it is or one soul crushing fumble, it is two. That's two in the same game. And those things cannot happen if you're Illinois. They cannot happen if you really want to be a team that wants to aspire to the next level. I know that for now, this team is firmly gonna get a really good bowl game. That is just a standard that Brett Bielema has established in this program. I'm not a person that looks back into the years previous, before 20 whatever, before the Brett Bielema era, simply because I'm not old enough to have experienced those years, and also because Brett Bielema has talked about he wants to change the standard, and that I am complying with that standard, and I don't think that those mistakes can happen if you're Illinois in that situation. You got away with it this time, and great for you, great for USC. It's great to beat USC and take that win because no doubt this Illinois deserves so much credit for taking down a team of this caliber uh, at home, and now you put yourself in a position where you can keep climbing that ladder, and you might have a chance at reaching that next level that you want to get, and that Illinois feels like it's building up. It's been building up to for a couple years now. So you had those two drives that you were on the verge of really knocking them out, really sitting them down and saying, this is how we're going to take the game. And you failed to convert it on both of those drives. But bottom line, the reason why Illinois won this game is because of the turnovers. Illinois gave up those two fumbles. They came at probably the worst time they could have ever. If you were gonna have fumbles, they came at the worst time, no doubt. But this Illinois winning the turnover margin against USC won them the game because Illinois' defense did have trouble stopping USC's uh, offense at certain points. They only forced one forced fumble, but the key was they had three of those three turnovers. A fumble in the first quarter. Obviously, we talked about Leon Lowry. We had that pass breakup from Juice Clark, who, like we mentioned, had a pretty really remarkable game for it to be his first game coming back from injury, have to battle some rust, and for him to have that kind of impact and beyond players that were really competitive and have a couple key pass breakers. We'll talk about the stats in a bit. That is key as well, and you feel good about what he did today. And then that interception by Dylan Rosiak. If you miss one of those, the game feels different. And you I don't know how you feel about the Illinois defense as a collective stopping USC's prolific offense from scoring at least 3 points. And they needed all those 3 points because they went into that fourth quarter and they took the lead on you. Luckily, you were only down by 1 point, and then that really prolific has been the word of the day so far today. But really, that really confident drive down USC's territory to set up David Olana for that field goal. By the way, David Olana with that field goal, 41 yards, just incredible display of confidence by that man, and being able to be cool as a cucumber in that moment, not to inspire any doubt at all that you're the guy who's going to make that play. I mean, he was getting emotional in the post game, talking about how his teammates, his unit, Keelan Crimmins, a couple of the other guys in the special teams, it's just thinking about what it is their role is on this team and how truly remarkable it is when they can actually have that impact. And David, you saw it with him today, and Brett Bielema said it, that he's one of the best kickers he's ever been around. And I mean, when you're a part of that, and when you're that guy, I mean, you feel like you're on top of the world. And so, just amazing stuff from David Olano, and really just the that side of the special teams. Special teams bounced back. I mean, they didn't have a mistake like they did last week. They had production. They had positive production. They didn't do anything wrong, and for the most part, they really they contributed as much as they could, and that's really all you can ask. As far as defensively, though, let's go back to the defense. Obviously, those turnovers are the thing that really sticks out, that you're really gonna remember this defense for. Juice Clark coming back, Sabor Kareem getting a couple more reps than he had last time, and then the interesting part is that he was in a situation where he was considering a red shirt based on playing time. And look at where him not taking that red shirt kind of led him to. And so that's interesting to see as well. The fact that a guy like that can have this kind of production. You feel good about that as well. All right. Defensively, there were a couple of things that you definitely feel like just USC, obviously, like we mentioned, really good team. But they drove down the field a lot very comfortably, as much as Illinois did. A lot. And there were a lot of explosive plays. I think the secondary still allowed really explosive plays. But granted, they also have a couple weapons that are pretty good, that have resulted in a lot of production for this program, that really do a lot for this team. And so you do hope that you see more containment from this program to other programs this season. Last season, they allowed a lot of points against Purdue. It was a Purdue Illinois. It was a not a blowout. It was a shootout. Illinois snuck through, but you can't do that in Lafayette, and I think they understand it. We'll see how they handle that throughout. Now, I've got 7 tackles, 10 total tackles, and Gabe Akis had half a tackle for loss and a solo tackle and a set half of a sack. And I think you saw a lot of really good things. James Thompson as well continues to be a really good contributor for this team as one of those Wisconsin guys, Wisconsin transfers, keeps piling up the production. And you felt good about where this team, what this team did in certain situations defensively. I think obviously there were things, and I think there will continue to be things that they want to perfect. But it's a matter of what it is that how it is that they choose to address them and whether or not they can really it is feasible based on the personnel that they do have. Um, yeah, I think let's. I'm going to shift a little bit to the running game. I think obviously you had those explosive runs on a couple of those plays. Khalil Valentine had probably the least production he's had over the course of his season, but I do think that he does like this is still a sophomore, and this is a dude who's facing that Big Ten competition as one of the premier running backs on this team, and you felt good about what he. I think I mean there were a couple key plays that he had that was really fun to see, and I think this he's going to continue to get better, and he's been really good throughout this season. There's no reason to think that he won't. Caden Fagan had finally a really big explosive run against this caliber of an opponent, and a huge touchdown run that kind of made a difference. That pretty much made a difference. Every single touchdown they made a difference in this game. But there were certain moments where you really felt it. That touchdown run by Caden Fagan was everything that Illinois needed in that moment because they put you up by more than 7 points. You felt comfortable. You kept playing ahead of the sticks. You kept playing ahead of USC, and that's important. You want to suffocate your opponent. You want to make them feel like they have a long climb to go. And for the most part, that's what kept Illinois in the in on bay and in the mentality of winning this game. And that was really great to see. And so you hope that that continues for Caden Fagan as a guy that has some has had some inconsistency in the past, but beyond that is also a dude who maybe deserves a little bit of grace based on the fact that the road to recovery was long for him, and so you wonder what that will look like for the guy. Um, it was fun to see Xavier Scott roll in with his I don't even know what that is. It's like a little like wagon of where you put your knee and you walk, you kind of roll through. He was really happy for the guys, so that was fun to see in the post game. Another fun nugget after the game. I was walking to home, and the Krutzes were outside having a little picnic, having a little tailgate, post game tailgate. So it's cool to see the players celebrate with their families like that because this game, you lose this game, you might be feeling a little. You're feeling those kinds of celebrations kind of have a different feel, and it's important to win a game of this caliber, a game at this time in the season. Listen, for the longest time this week, it felt to me like that Indiana game was reframing the way I saw this team. I will admit that because the way that I looked at it was, oh, maybe we're wrong about Illinois because that kind of performance was still unacceptable. Maybe we're wrong about Illinois. Why? Because let's look at the wins that they had last season. All right, they beat Kansas, who at the time was ranked, but went on a was on track for a downward spiral. They're no longer ranked. They're not one of the better teams in college football. All right, Nebraska at the time was ranked. You went to their place. You won that game. I still think that's a really good win. But downward trend. Even South Carolina, you won that bowl game. Great win. Great atmosphere. Means a lot to this program. Downward spiral. Okay, as soon as you face a team that is in an upward spiral, who's climbing their way up, Guess what happens? You lose that game in embarrassing fashion. This USC team is not in a downward spiral. I'd say they're neutral. I'd say they're one of the better programs in college football. The fact that you won means a lot because it doesn't give more credence to that argument. And for that, I think Illinois deserves credit. So, one more thing that I want to talk about because it's not something that I think is joyous to talk about, but it's something that I think we need to talk about. In the press conference, Brett Bielema finally talked about Malik Elzy in very earnest fashion. He is no longer on the team. He will be redshirting, and all the concerns that I had, that maybe you guys had, were right. This is a guy who was a 4-star recruit, and he's no longer on the team and will transfer in the offseason. That kind of stuff cannot happen if you're Illinois. It's a guy from Chicago, a 4-star recruit, a guy physical body who I thought was going to be what Justin Bowick has become on this team. Those concerns were right, man. This is not what a this you hope that this is not something that becomes a pattern, right, for this program. It's probably a product of just how busy, how full this wide receiver core has become, how much insurance Illinois wanted to have at that position coming into this season. Malik Elzy just out of the loop, and he'll look for a new home as soon as the offseason hits. It's an unfortunate situation, but listen, that it really feels like that kind of stuff can't happen, especially because not just is he a 4-star recruit. This is a dude who was seen as going to be the guy coming into the offseason. And then you hear that in training camp, they're only talking about Colin Dixon and Hank Beatty. And you're like, what is going on? And it's also a dude from Chicago. And that's important. That plays a factor because you want to have good standing with those guys, those kids. It's just, it's, you don't want to see that happening, but it's something that just does in the college football landscape. We'll talk about it more in next podcast. We'll be previewing. No, I didn't have a preview for this USC game. A little busy, tied up with a bunch of things this week. Be sure to follow my coverage. Might talk about some other sports coming up. That's also going to be real fun. So please stay tuned for that. So subscribe, rate, review, please. It helps a lot. And I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.